In the winter of 2022, in a gated waterfront neighborhood at South Lake Tahoe, where the homes sell for the better part of $1 million, a 500-pound black bear squeezed its body through a small window and let itself into a house. No one was home. It did not break into the garage where the trash was kept. It went through a secured window of the house itself, somehow folding all 500 pounds of muscle through a gap that looked impossible, and helped itself to whatever it could find inside. That bear became famous. The police called it Hank the Tank, and the name spread across the internet, because by then the animal had been blamed for 28 home break-ins and 152 separate reports of conflict, smashing through front doors and garage doors over the course of about 7 months. Paintballs did not stop it. Sirens did not stop it. Wildlife officials described it as severely food habituated, which is the clinical way of saying that the bear had completely lost its fear of people and had learned instead to associate human houses with food. And here is the strange part of the story, the part that is happening far beyond one rich neighborhood in the Sierra Nevada. Hank the Tank was not an isolated freak. He was the loudest example of something quietly unfolding in suburbs all across the United States. Black bears are moving in among us, and most people have no idea how many or how close. It would mean less if Hank were one bear. He turned out to be at least 3. When wildlife officers finally ran DNA on the break-ins they had blamed on a single male, the results came back as something else entirely. The damage at more than 30 properties had been done by at least 3 different bears with the same habit and the same general look. The bear they eventually captured, the one everyone had been calling Hank, was not even male. It was a female with 3 cubs trailing behind her, and she had been teaching those cubs to do exactly what she did, breaking into homes for an easy meal. That single detail is the whole story in miniature. This was not one rogue animal. It was a population adapting, reproducing, and passing the suburb down to the next generation. This is the space the whole story lives in. The bears are real, documented, and astonishingly numerous, but they are not the wilderness animals people picture, holding to the deep woods in the national parks. They are in the neighborhoods now, in the cul-de-sacs and the backyards, moving through suburban streets at night, denning under porches and decks. And the same thing that makes them fascinating makes them a problem, because a bear that has learned to see your garage as a refrigerator is a bear that is very hard to convince otherwise. They are wild and present, and most of the people sharing their towns with them never see them at all. To understand how this happened, you have to start with a number almost nobody believes. New Jersey, the most densely populated state in the entire country, now has confirmed black bears in all 21 of its counties, and a population estimated around 3,000 animals. Not in some remote corner, across the whole state, including suburban Bergen County in the shadow of New York City, where bears are now reported climbing trees on residential streets and crossing roads through dense neighborhoods. And New Jersey is not unusual. In Connecticut, the black bear population has climbed to somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200, and in 2024, bears were reported in 159 of the state's 169 towns. Only 9 towns in the entire state had no bear sightings at all. The numbers across the rest of the Northeast tell the same story. Vermont set a goal of keeping its bear population between 3,500 and 5,500, and instead, it now holds somewhere between 6,800 and 8,000. New Hampshire is over its target too, with nearly 6,000 bears. State after state, the bears are not just surviving, they are overflowing, and the most important sign of what is coming is not the raw count. It is which bears are showing up. In Connecticut, wildlife officials report that sightings of sows with cubs, the clearest evidence of breeding rather than wandering, have now been confirmed in more than 89 towns and across the last 3 years in 117 different municipalities. The breeding population is not holding still in the Western Hills where it has always been. It is expanding steadily eastward, town by town, into places that have not had resident bears in living memory. Sightings have jumped in suburbs east of the Connecticut River, where bears were almost never seen before. When females are denning and raising cubs in a suburb, that suburb is no longer a place a bear occasionally passes through. It is a place bears live. The reason this is happening is, on its face, a conservation triumph, even if it does not always feel like one from inside a ransacked kitchen. A century ago, black bears in much of the eastern United States had been pushed to the brink. Forests were cleared for farms, the animals were hunted relentlessly, and across huge stretches of their old range, the bears simply vanished. Then the trend reversed. Farms were abandoned and the forests grew back. Hunting was regulated, and the black bear, which is one of the most adaptable large animals in North America, came flooding back into the regrown woods. There are now thought to be somewhere around 300,000 black bears in the United States, recolonizing states across the Midwest and the South where they had been wiped out, from Missouri to the Carolinas. But here is the twist that turns a recovery story into a story about your neighborhood. The bears came back to a landscape that was no longer empty woods. While they were gone, we filled it with suburbs. And it turns out, the suburb, from a bear's point of view, is a forest with better food in it. Because a black bear is not, in the main, a fearsome hunter. It is a giant, intelligent, endlessly hungry opportunist that will eat almost anything. And the modern American suburb is a buffet that never closes. Unsecured garbage cans, bird feeders loaded with high-calorie seed, pet food on the back step, grills, fruit trees, chicken coops, the contents of an unlocked garage. Bears that learn to exploit those foods grow bigger and raise more cubs, and researchers suspect that this flood of human food may be supercharging their reproduction, lifting the natural limits that lean years in the wild used to impose. The suburb does not just tolerate bears, it manufactures more of them, and it does something worse, which is what created Hank. The drive that powered those Tahoe break-ins has a name, hyperphagia, the late summer and fall feeding frenzy, when a bear must pack on enormous reserves of fat to survive winter denning, eating almost around the clock. Point that ancient, overwhelming hunger at a neighborhood full of unsecured food, and you get a 500-pound animal that has learned to fold itself through a kitchen window. The strangest part of all this is how invisible it stays, even at these numbers. You can live in a town with a thriving bear population, and rarely, if ever, see one, because black bears are mostly nocturnal around people, shy by instinct, and inclined to flee at the sight or smell of a human. They move through the dark, along the green corridors and the wooded edges, and the creek beds that thread between the houses, and they are gone before dawn. The bear that tipped your neighbor's trash can over at 2 a.m. was a few hundred yards from your bed, and you slept through it. Their invisibility is not a sign that there are only a few of them. It is the precise reason a population this large can live this close to this many people without most of those people ever knowing. The obvious objection here is the one every parent in a bear town asks first. Is a 500-pound predator in my neighborhood dangerous? And the honest answer is genuinely reassuring, with one real caveat. Black bears are, by the standard of large predators, remarkably non-aggressive toward people. They are not grizzlies. Hank the Tank broke into 28 homes and, in all those months of chaos, never harmed a single person. Across the country, the vast majority of bear encounters end with the bear running away. But the caveat matters, and honesty requires it. A habituated bear is a less predictable bear. Attacks do rarely happen, and there have been maulings, including a woman injured, when a different bear broke into her Lake Tahoe cabin. The danger is small, much smaller than people fear, but it is not zero, and it grows every time a bear is taught that houses mean food. Honesty requires the rest of it too. Most black bears are not breaking into anything. They are living quietly in the woods at the edges of town, and the dramatic home invader is the exception, not the rule. The bears do real damage to gardens, beehives, livestock, and property, and to a farmer or a homeowner that cost is not trivial, even if it is rarely dangerous. And the phrase moving into the suburbs oversells the menace, because what is really happening is subtler and more uncomfortable than an invasion. The bears are not attacking the suburbs. They are recolonizing land they were erased from, and discovering that we have stocked it with food. The crisis, where there is one we built and keep feeding. Almost every serious bear problem traces back to the same human source, an unsecured trash can, and almost every one of them is preventable. Because the real claim underneath the viral break in videos is narrower and more interesting than a monster story. The science does not say bears are invading American towns. It says that one of the most adaptable animals on the continent, recovered from near elimination a century ago, has flooded back into a landscape we filled with suburbs while it was gone, and has learned, faster than anyone expected, to live inside them. Hank the Tank was not a horror movie. He was a 500-pound mirror, an animal doing exactly what its instincts demanded in a neighborhood that left the food out and got caught being a bear in a place that forgot bears were ever there. So it ends where it began, at a shattered window in a quiet, expensive neighborhood with a bear that was only doing what bears do. Hank, the female who wore that name, was eventually captured and sent to live out her life in a sanctuary in Colorado, separated from the cubs she had been teaching the trade, because a bear that has learned the suburb that thoroughly can almost never unlearn it. But the suburb she adopted is not unusual anymore. Tonight, in towns across the country, in the dark beyond the porch light, black bears are moving through the backyards and the cul-de-sacs, denning under the decks, raising cubs who will know this landscape of trash cans and bird feeders as the only home they have ever had. The wild did not stay in the woods where we left it. It came back, and it moved in next door, and most of us are still asleep when it walks down the street,